Imagine a local farmer in rural India holding a 5-year-old smartphone.
Right. Probably standing out in a field with like a spotty 2G connection at best.
Exactly. Now imagine that same farmer using that exact phone to verbally ask a cutting-edge artificial intelligence for highly specific crop yield predictions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the AI actually answers back in his native regional dialect.
Which is wild because for the longest time, the dominant narrative out of Silicon Valley told us that kind of localized, low bandwidth integration was just, decades away.
Right, they said you had to have a massive data center nearby and a high-speed fiber connection.
Hmm.
But in February 2026, the global script completely flipped.
It really did.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring a truly landmark event, the India AI Impact Summit of 2026.
Which, if you look at the strategy, was a massive geopolitical pivot.
Yeah.
Up until this summit, if you tracked the global AI conversation, it was heavily defensive. The summits hosted in the global north were almost exclusively focused on AI safety first and risk mitigation.
Right, a lot of policymakers debating sci-fi doomsday scenarios about rogue algorithms.
Exactly, containment over creation. The focus was entirely on building walls around the technology.
But this 2026 summit in New Delhi just kicked the boardroom doors wide open. We were talking about 89 countries represented,
Hmm.
20 heads of state, and over 500 global AI leaders and CEOs.
This wasn't your standard tech expo where companies just, show off new gadgets.
No, absolutely not.
The mission of our deep dive today is to unpack how this specific gathering rewrote the global rulebook, moving the world away from doomsday prepping and toward inclusive, development-oriented AI.
And that's why it's so important for you to understand this structural shift.
Mhm.
It forced the international community to view artificial intelligence not just as like a potential threat to be managed by wealthy nations, but as a critical engine for economic survival.
Yeah, the perspective is completely different. Right. For the global south, the question isn't whether AI will take over the world. The question is whether AI can help build a resilient power grid or, deliver healthcare to a remote village.
So to understand the technology that actually came out of this,
Right.
we have to start with the philosophy driving it.
Yeah.
You can't understand the physical architecture if you don't understand the blueprint.
100%.
The summit operated under this overarching theme, which was welfare for all, happiness of all. And they codified this into what they called the three sutras: people, planet, and progress.
And those aren't just empty buzzwords. If we treat this like a strategic framework, let's look at the mechanics of the Planet Sutra, for instance.
Okay.
Traditionally, training an AI model requires gargantuan amounts of electricity and water to cool the servers.
Right. It's a massive environmental drain.
Exactly. So by enshrining Planet as a foundational pillar, the summit mandated a focus on energy-efficient AI. It changes how developers actually write their code.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, they have to optimize algorithms to run on less power, rather than just throwing more electricity at a problem to solve it faster.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because they took those three sutras and expanded them into 7 chakras.
Mm-hmm.
Things like human capital, science, economic growth, and democratizing resources.
Right.
And using the word chakra is a very specific choice here. It implies an interconnected biological system.
It does, yes.
Like if you push for aggressive economic growth, but you ignore the human capital chakra, the entire system falls out of alignment and just breaks.
It treats technology as a societal force that requires holistic balance. And to enforce that balance, the summit introduced a framework called the MANAV vision.
Yeah, looking through our sources, the MANAV framework essentially reads like a nutritional label for AI ethics.
I love that analogy.
Like when you buy a box of cereal, you can turn it around and see exactly how much sugar or sodium is in there. MANAV does that for algorithms.
That is a perfect way to conceptualize it. If we connect this to the bigger picture, MANAV is fundamentally about digital sovereignty.
Right. For decades, the primary fear in the global south has been digital colonization. A foreign tech giant extracts your citizens' data, processes it on servers halfway across the world, and then basically sells it back to you as a subscription service.
Which brings up the NANAV, national sovereignty over data. Let's break down the whole acronym, though. It's moral and ethical systems, accountable governance, national sovereignty over data, accessible AI and valid AI systems.
Exactly. It's a complete governance reform.
But how does a government actually enforce that mechanically? Because, the internet doesn't have physical borders.
Well, it comes down to data localization laws and physical infrastructure.
Mhm.
Enforcing data sovereignty means requiring that the servers processing sensitive citizen data are physically located within the country's borders.
No, so they are subject to that country's legal jurisdiction.
Precisely. It means the algorithms must anonymize data before it ever crosses an international fiber optic cable. The MANAV framework draws a line in the sand. It tells tech companies, if you want access to 1 billion-plus users, you have to build your AI inside our ethical borders.
And the really striking part is that it actually worked. The sources show that major tech giants, Google, OpenAI, Meta, Microsoft, Anthropic, Mira, they all signed the voluntary New Delhi Frontier AI commitments.
Wow.
They agreed to adopt this sovereign framework.
Getting the world's biggest AI developers to willingly adopt a framework centered on sovereign rights at a summit in the Global South, that fundamentally changes the geopolitical dynamic of technology governance.
It absolutely proves that market access can be leveraged to demand ethical compliance.
But a philosophical framework is just a great starting point, right? A manifesto doesn't process data.
True.
To actually build these ethical localized systems, you need servers, you need hardware. How do we prevent AI from being monopolized by a few wealthy nations who happen to own all the graphics processing units, the GPUs?
You have to democratize the means of production.
And the summit answered that with an absolute avalanche of capital. I mean, the numbers from the sources are staggering.
They really are.
We're talking over $250 billion in infrastructure-related investment pledges. Another $20 billion in venture capital specifically targeting deep tech. Plus, domestic giants in India like Reliance Industries and the Adani Group pledged 10 lakh crore to build domestic AI infrastructure. Oh, and Google announced a massive new subsea cable directly linking India and the U.S.
Let's focus on that subsea cable for a second, because the physical plumbing of the internet dictates who controls the AI.
Okay.
Data travels as light through fiber optic cables sitting on the ocean floor. If you have to bounce your data through multiple different countries to reach a server in California, you introduce latency.
A delay in the AI's response time.
Exactly. A direct subsea cable drastically reduces that latency, effectively integrating India's tech sector directly into the global backbone at lightning speed.
It paves the way for the summit's main technological goal, which is the democratizing AI resources, chakra. The central bottleneck for global equality in tech right now is access to GPUs.
Right, they are incredibly expensive.
So to fix that, the summit rolled out the $1 billion India AI Compute Access Initiative.
This is a critical policy intervention. Training an AI model requires an ocean of computing power. If you are a startup in a developing nation, you simply cannot afford to rent enough server time from a Western cloud provider to build your own model.
The technology just becomes locked behind a financial gate.
Yes. Under this new initiative, they are giving 10,000 startups and researchers free access to GPU resources to hit 1 petaflop of processing capacity by 2027.
Now, for the listener who isn't a computer scientist, what exactly is a petaflop and why does a startup need one?
So a single flop is 1 mathematical calculation per second. A petaflop is 1 quadrillion calculations per second.
Oh, wow, that's a massive number.
It is. To put that in perspective, if you tried to run a modern AI model on a standard high-end laptop, it would crash instantly. It simply cannot process the millions of variables required to understand human language or analyze a medical scan.
So providing a petaflop of computing power is like giving a brilliant engineer who's been working in a tiny garage the keys to a fully automated, state-of-the-art manufacturing plant.
Exactly. It completely removes the physical barrier to innovation.
But let me push back a bit here. If you're listening to this, you might be thinking, a bunch of politicians signing a piece of paper and handing out $1 billion in servers doesn't actually stop tech monopolies. It just builds a bigger factory for one specific country.
That's a fair point.
How does this democratize AI globally?
That skepticism is entirely valid. Handing out servers domestically doesn't solve the global monopoly. That is why the hardware investments were paired with the New Delhi Declaration on AI.
Which was signed by over 88 countries, right?
Yes. This declaration focuses on what they call the democratic diffusion of AI, establishing it as a global common good.
Okay, so what is the actual mechanism for that diffusion? How does a declaration force a change in how technology is shared?
Through the creation of the Global AI Impact Commons, this is a shared international database of AI use cases and open source models.
Oh, interesting.
Let's say a startup in Kenya wants to build an AI to predict local weather patterns for farmers. Previously, they would either have to buy an expensive proprietary model from a tech giant or start from absolute scratch.
But with the Impact Commons, they can log into this shared database, find a similar agricultural model that was developed in India or Brazil, download the underlying architecture for free, and adapt it to their local climate.
Exactly. It prevents developing nations from constantly having to reinvent the wheel. It's essentially open sourcing global problem solving.
So we have the MANAV philosophical framework, we have
Yeah.
the subsea cables and the petaflops of computing power, and we have the global data sharing database.
Right.
Let's look at what is actually being built for the everyday user with all of these tools, because this is where the theory hits reality.
This marks India's transition from being merely a consumer of foreign technology to a primary creator of sovereign AI.
The sources highlight three major indigenous AI models unveiled at the summit. First, we have Sarvam AI, which introduced language models trained entirely in India with advanced reasoning capabilities. Then we have Nani.ai. This is the one that really caught my attention. It's a voice-based model operating across 12 Indian languages, specifically designed to work under low bandwidth conditions.
Which is a huge technical achievement.
Right. How is that mechanically possible? We just talked about how AI needs oceans of compute power. How does an AI function on a spotty 2G connection?
It uses a technique called edge computing and model compression.
Okay.
Instead of requiring the user's phone to send a massive audio file of their voice all the way to a cloud server, the developers compress the AI model so the basic logic actually lives on the device itself.
The edge of the network.
Exactly. So the phone only needs to send tiny, encrypted packets of text data back and forth, which a 2G network can easily handle.
So the farmer in the field doesn't need to wait for a massive file to upload. The processing happens right in the palm of his hand.
Yes. And this leads to the third major model announced, which is ParakGen. This is a 17 billion parameter multilingual foundational model, optimized for Indic languages, and it is entirely open source.
Here's where it gets really interesting. 17 billion parameters. For our listeners, think of parameters like the vocabulary or the synapses of an AI brain.
That is a highly accurate analogy. A parameter is essentially a piece of information the AI uses to make decisions.
So why does it need 17 billion of them just to speak a language? Can't it just use a translation app?
Because direct translation strips away cultural context.
Ah, right.
If you take a sophisticated AI built in Silicon Valley and ask it to operate in rural India, it fails. It assumes the user has a high-speed internet connection, and it processes concepts through a Western cultural lens.
So it might directly translate an English sentence into Hindi, but it will completely miss the regional idioms, the local dialects, and the social nuances of how a local shopkeeper actually speaks.
Exactly. By training ParakGen with 17 billion parameters, specifically on Indic languages, the AI develops the complex synapses required to understand the cultural nuance of the user, rather than forcing the user to adapt to the machine.
That perfectly embodies the inclusion for social empowerment chakra we mentioned earlier. You are bringing the technology to where the people actually are.
Yes.
And this massive technological rollout comes with a massive human element. The summit set a goal to create 2 million AI-related job opportunities by 2028.
Which requires building a completely new capacity and workforce.
They are doing this through targeted flagship initiatives. We have AI for All, which focuses on deploying AI for urban mobility and infrastructure. We have AI by Her, a global challenge promoting women-led innovation. And YUVI, empowering youth to develop solutions.
Right.
And these aren't just high-level coding jobs, right?
Not at all. Training these sovereign models requires millions of hours of beta labeling, voice recording in local dialects, and prompt engineering tailored for specific industries like agriculture or local healthcare.
It creates an entire ecosystem of employment that doesn't require a traditional computer science degree.
It is a highly coordinated strategy. They are aligning national security through digital sovereignty. They are driving economic growth by democratizing compute power. And they are elevating their global standing by proving that AI can be culturally fluent.
However, we need to examine the vulnerability in this system.
We do, definitely.
I want to slow our pace for a second. Because despite the $250 billion, the amazing new open source models, and the 2 million jobs, the sources end with a glaring, critical warning. It's something called the intellectual gap.
We are advancing technologically at a breakneck speed, but we are lagging intellectually in our understanding of the fallout.
So what does this all mean? Let's try an analogy here. It's like rolling out a massive countrywide highway system without bothering to study traffic patterns or where people actually live.
That's exactly.
We are laying down the concrete, the AI models, and the servers, but without the social science to guide it, we have no idea if we are paving over local neighborhoods or actually connecting them.
The sources highlight this exact structural problem, which is underfunded social research. We see billions of dollars pouring into STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math. The venture capital is flowing freely into infrastructure.
But institutions tasked with studying the human element, like the Indian Council of Social Science Research, the ICSSR, remain severely under-resourced in comparison.
Yes, and that is a massive risk.
Why is a lack of sociology funding a tangible threat to a tech rollout, though?
Because it leads to the creation of black box systems.
Meaning a system where we know the data that goes in and we see the decision that comes out, but we have absolutely no idea how the algorithm arrived at that conclusion in the middle.
Exactly. Consider the agricultural AI we discussed earlier. Let's say a local government deploys an AI to maximize crop yields across a region. The algorithm processes the weather data, the soil acidity, and the seed types, and it spits out a highly efficient planting schedule.
The yield goes up. It looks like a massive success.
But what is the hidden cost? The AI might have optimized for efficiency by recommending a watering schedule that silently drains a shared local water table.
Oh, completely disrupting a neighboring community's traditional way of life.
Right. Or it might introduce hidden biases in how it allocates fertilizer subsidies, favoring one demographic over another based on historical data patterns.
If we don't aggressively fund the social sciences to develop the tools to measure behavioral changes, cultural impact, and daily ethics, we are basically flying blind.
The summit's entire goal is welfare and empowerment. But if sociology isn't funded to act as the navigation system for the engineering, that empowerment can unintentionally turn into exploitation.
We cannot just throw petaflops of processing power at a problem and assume the math naturally solves the human equation. We have to study the societal impact just as rigorously as we study the code.
The human integration is the most complex variable in the entire system.
Okay, let's pull all of this together. The India AI Impact Summit 2026 clearly achieved something historic. It successfully positioned the Global South, and India specifically, at the crucial bridge in technology governance.
It championed open source development and democratized hardware over the closed, hoarded, national stack approach of the past.
It proved that artificial intelligence doesn't have to be a monopolized tool for corporate profit, nor does it have to be a subject of sci-fi terror. It can be a genuine engine for global progress, provided we build it with localized sovereign guardrails.
As we reflect on these massive shifts, this raises an important question for you, the listener. We've talked about international declarations, billions in funding, and the mechanics of sovereign AI models.
Wow.
But as this technology becomes fully democratized, culturally fluent, and deeply embedded in your everyday life, managing your local traffic, your healthcare, and your economy, how will it change the social fabric of your own community?
It's a huge question.
If the technology is evolving exponentially faster than our social sciences can study it, who ultimately decides the ethics of the black box that you are going to rely on every single day?
The VIP boardroom doors of the tech monopolies might have been kicked open, but we still have to figure out who is checking the foundation of the building we are all moving into. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.